Well, we'll start our briefing or our hearing portion of today's agenda. And first, I'd like to recognize that we have a full quorum: Mr. Church and Mr. Moon, Mr. Borden, Miss Selma. Is Selma still on there? Yep, Miss Sierra, and here in the auditorium we have Miss Garrison and Mr. Walker. And myself, and I just want to make sure that the court reporter is ready to go. Christina, are you prepared to go ahead?
I am, thank you.
Great. Well, we have one item that we will hear today. It is docket number 2022-001, cause number 470-04. In the matter of the request for agency action of UINTA Wax Operating LLC for an order amending the board's order entered in cause number 470-03. I won't read the rest of this, and at this time we'll take appearance of counsel. Uh-oh. Mr. McDonald, can you hear us? Miss Souza, can you hear us?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Baza. I can hear you fine.
Thank you. We might be having some technical difficulties. Board members, Rich, can you hear me? Great. Okay. Steve, you can hear us? Okay.
This is Natasha. I can hear you, but I don't see Haley. Oh, I do see Haley. I don't see Fred McDonald listed in participants.
It
Okay.
kicked me off, but I was able to just rejoin now.
Yeah, I think Mr. McDonald's having a little bit of a problem, and he's working to get back on. So we'll give it a moment. I'm going to turn off my microphone so that we don't have any more discussion on the record.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back on. Sorry about that glitch.
No problem. We fully understand in this great electronic age that things outside our control do happen. So, if you're prepared, Mr. McDonald, we will go back on the record and we will have appearances of counsel.
Thank you. Fred McDonald of counsel with Lear & Lear on behalf of the petitioner, UINTA Wax Operating LLC.
And Haley
you.
Souza on behalf of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, I think the show is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With me today, virtually are Ms. Whitney Womack, who is the landman of UINTA Wax LLC, and Ms. Kayleen Tovar, who is the senior reservoir engineer of UINTA Wax LLC. If the court reporter could swear them in at this time.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Ladies, you need to unmute.
Sorry. We do.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, both witnesses also share duties with the petitioner in this matter. The resumes of both of them were collectively submitted as part of Exhibit A in this cause. If asked, each would confirm the information reflected in their respective resumes is true and correct. Ms. Womack will be testifying as a fact witness only today. Ms. Tovar has been previously recognized by the board as an expert in reservoir engineering last year in cause number 470-03. Presuming the division has no objection, we request that she be recognized today as an expert in general petroleum engineering.
Any objections?
No objections, thank you.
None from the board?
Mr. Chairman, also, just to confirm also that it's acceptable for me to move for admission of our exhibits at the end of our presentation in chief.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. As the board will recall, last summer in cause number 470-03, the board established certain 1,280-acre Lower Green River Wasatch drilling units for long lateral horizontal wells throughout Township 3 South, Range 1 East, and UINTA County. In addition, the board established overlapping 2,560-acre drilling units for drilling unit boundary wells, or as I will refer to them today as DSU boundary wells. A true and correct copy of the board's order entered in cause number 470-03 was submitted as part of Exhibit B in this cause. The 470-03 order expressly states that a DSU boundary well may not be drilled unless at least one long lateral horizontal well is drilled and producing on each of the 1,280-acre underlying drilling units. The reason being that the board has expressed concern that a DSU boundary well should not alone hold leases in the entire 2,560 acres. However, in the board in its order in cause number 600-04 also previously recognized the efficiencies gained by concurrent drilling of DSU boundary wells with the wells in the underlying 1,280-acre drilling units, provided that the wells on the underlying 1,280-acre drilling units are producing prior to the DSU boundary well. A true and correct copy of the board's order entered in cause number 600-04 was also submitted as part of Exhibit B in this cause. For similar reasons to which Ms. Tovar will testify, UINTA Wax Operating LLC is before you today requesting amendment of the 470-03 order to allow the concurrent drilling of a DSU boundary well with the underlying wells on each of the underlying 1,280-acre drilling units, with the same caveat requiring production from each of those wells on the underlying drilling unit prior to commencing production of the drilling unit boundary well. The board did not, however, in either the 600-04 or the 470-03 order, address how long the wells in the underlying 1,280-acre drilling unit wells, or boundaries, excuse me, had to produce before the DSU boundary well could be produced and/or begin production. I, on behalf of many of my clients, posed that exact question to the division in anticipation of filing requests similar to the one before you today. In response, the division, through its counsel, stated that it believed 1 day of production in paying quantities should be sufficient to allow the DSU boundary well to begin production. A true and correct copy of the division's counsel response to my inquiry was submitted as Exhibit H in this cause. Consequently, and to eliminate future questions, UINTA Operating is requesting the board to adopt and include in the requested amendment the division's recommendation to require 1 day of production in paying quantities from the wells in the underlying 1,280 acre drilling units before the DSU boundary well may produce. The board has jurisdiction over this matter pursuant to Utah Code annotated section 40-6, subparagraph 53B, and 40-6-6. Notice was sent via regular mail to all production interest owners in the requested drilling units, to all of the working interest owners, including unleased owners in the established drilling units, or if unspaced, the quarter sections adjacent to the requested drilling units, and to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Land Management, and the School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, being governmental agencies having oil and gas jurisdiction over many of the lands. The mailings were sent to these parties at their last addresses disclosed by those agencies in the Uinta County Realty Records and the internal records of UINTA Wax LLC. Some were returned as undeliverable due to addresses being invalid based on the record searches. The records will also reflect that the notice was duly published in the Salt Lake Tribune on January 2nd, 2022, and in the Uinta Basin Standard and Vernal Express on January 5th, 2022, and in the Deseret News on January 7th, 2022. The division elected not to file a staff memorandum, and no other objections to the request were timely filed or received. With that, I'll commence my examination of Ms. Womack. Ms. Womack, would you please state your name and business address for the record?
Whitney Womack, UINTA Wax LLC, 5128 Apache Plume Road, Suite 300, Fort Worth, Texas, 76109.
And what is your, I'm sorry.
I'm a landman with UINTA Wax with supervision over the area at issue.
Okay, would you please provide for the record the corporate and bonding status of UINTA Wax Operating LLC?
UWAX is a Delaware limited liability corporation in good standing with its principal place of business in Fort Worth, Texas. It is the successor by name changed to CH4 Finley Operating LLC as of August 1st, 2021. UNIWAX is duly authorized to conduct business in the state of Utah and is fully bonded with all relevant state of Utah and federal agencies. It is a designated operator on behalf of UINTA Wax LLC.
All right, can everybody see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Womack, I'm now going to direct your attention what have been marked as exhibits C through E for purposes of this hearing. Do you recognize these documents or these exhibits?
Yes, sir.
Hey, turning your attention to Exhibit C, would you please explain to the board and the division what this shows?
Sure. This is the regional locator map. It is showing the area of Randlett, which is the area of interest or application lands that are shown in red, and they're directly south and southeast of Ballard City.
Okay, and what are the gold outlines on this map?
The gold dash outlines are representing the overlapping drilling units in 3 South 1 West and 3 South 2 East with 3 South 1 East.
Okay, now turning your attention to Exhibit D, and for the board's information, this is the same exhibit as was submitted as Exhibit I in the 470-03 hearing. Would you please explain, Ms. Womack, to the board and the division what this shows?
Sure. This is the plot reflecting all 21 overlapping 2560 acre drilling unit boundary well DSUs that were established under the Order 470-03. And as I previously testified in the 470-03 hearing, UINTA Wax owns the majority interest throughout 3 South 1 East, some unleased interest, but all were provided notice and no one objected to the 470-03 order for this RA.
For this hearing, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now turning your attention to Exhibit E, would you please show explain what this represents?
This is the plat representing the notification area where we provided notice. All production interest owners are shown in red and yellow dashed areas. All working interest owners, including the unleased owners, are within the black dashed area.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to refer to the original and supplemental certificates of mailing. You should have hard copies in front of you. These were pleadings prepared by my office and submitted as part of the record here. Do you recognize the names and the addresses shown on those documents?
I do.
And who are those parties?
They're all parties that are receiving notice that were just mentioned in our Exhibit E, and the governmental agencies having mineral jurisdiction.
And how were those names and addresses compiled?
They were compiled from UINTA Wax's internal land records, including title opinions, a search of the BIA, SITLA, and UINTA County records prior to filing the RAA by our contracted land service company.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my examination of Ms. Womack.
Thank you. Ms. Souza, does the division have any questions or would like to question this witness?
Thank you, Chairman Hanson. I don't have any questions for this witness, but I would respectfully ask if the board allows, if either Mr. Dustin Doucette or Mr. Dane Doucette might have questions. I would be surprised if they did.
Well, I don't think the board has any objections for them asking questions, so.
No
ahead.
questions from me.
Thank you, Chairman Hanson.
Okay. Back to you, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have asked the board members.
Yes.
Yeah, board members, do you have any questions? And hearing or seeing none, Mr. McDonald, I'll turn the time back over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll now commence my examination of Ms. Tovar. Ms. Tovar, would you please state your name and business address for the record?
Yes, Kayleen Tovar, 5128 Apache Plume Road, Suite 300, Fort Worth, Texas, 76109.
And what is your position with UINTA Wax?
I'm currently an engineering supervisor responsible over multiple areas, including the subject area.
And what are your typical duties include as the drilling, or excuse me, as the engineering supervisor?
It includes reservoir engineering, supervising petroleum engineering activity, including in particular economics and environmental aspects of this business.
Okay, I'm going to turn your attention now to what have been marked as Exhibits F and G for purposes of this hearing. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes.
Were they prepared by you or by UINTA Wax personnel with your supervision and input?
Yes.
Okay, turning your attention now to Exhibit F, would you please explain to the board and the division what this shows?
This shows an example of our 2022 drilling plans. As you can see, there's two existing producing long lateral wells. That's the solid red. Those are the Kendall wells in the 1280 DSU in sections 6 and 7. There are no long lateral wells drilled yet in the DSU in sections 5 and 8. UWAX plans to concurrently drill the long lateral well in sections 5 and 8 DSU and the DSU boundary well from the same pad. And the well in section 5 and 8 will have to produce in paying quantities at least one day before the DSU well will begin production.
Okay, now turning your attention to Exhibit G, would you just kind of go through each bullet point to explain the efficiencies and benefits that derive from concurrent drilling?
Yes. So concurrent drilling is a significant reduction in cost to drill and complete wells. Reductions include things like rig moves, frac crew moving in and out. It allows optimization of facilities, being that they would be coming on at the same time and on the same pad. This reduction is about $1 to $2 million of capital for the boundary well. For example, our last rig move in the basin was around $700,000 just to move the rig. So lots of efficiencies there on cost savings. Also, coming back after the other wells are drilled and completed, for once we go to completion, for safety reasons, you'll have to shut in wells around the well being completed. So that would create a loss in revenue from those offset wells for a minimum of 2 weeks, potentially up to 2 months, if anything happened. And there's also potential for irreversible damage to the offset wells when you come back and do it at a later date. So that would mean you would be losing revenue from those wells while the completion is occurring on the later drilled well. Contemporaneously drilling and completing allows for flexibility to optimally space these wells to maximize resource recovery, prevent waste, while still protecting correlative rights. It also will allow us to use a single well pad with less emissions and things going on at the time of fracking and drilling, because it would be all at one time. So you would be reducing your environmental impact in the basin. And it allows operators to continue to operate with increased drilling activity while minimizing impact and being good stewards of the asset and air quality in the basin. I do want to say that the correlative rights of each underlying DSU production interest owner is protected. UWAX would not expend the significant capital to drill a well in the 1280 DSU just to like shut it in and hold acreage by a DSU boundary well only. The graph at the bottom kind of speaks to this. It's our goal at hitting optimizing our present value with how we would drill and complete wells and how we would space them. So our goal is to maximize, you know, at the end of the day, our profit. So it just would not be something that we would do to just produce one well at a time.
And I guess as an obvious observation as well, by allowing the DSU boundary well, that would increase production revenue to the production interest owners in both of the underlying 1280s. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it your expert opinion then that there are numerous benefits to concurrent drilling?
Yes.
And is it also your expert opinion that establishing production and paying quantities for 1 day prior to putting the DSU boundary well into production is protective of correlative rights while maximizing resource recovery without waste?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my examination of Ms. Tovar.
Thank you. I'll turn the time over to you, Ms. Sousa, for the division.
I have no questions. Do either of the Doucettes have any questions? Hearing none.
No questions from the division.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, do you have questions you'd like to ask? Yeah, Mr. Moon.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, looking at that, the bottom of that slide there, optimal well spacing. What is currently your estimation of the most optimal well spacing? Because looking at the slide prior, I believe most of the east-west setbacks on these stand-up horizontals are 560. And so are you only planning on putting one unit boundary well in between those two, you know, the well in 5 and 8, or can you put more in there? So just overall, what's your optimal well spacing plan?
So we're still learning that in this basin, and there's several other operators that we're learning from, so it won't be just doing it in a box. We're evaluating the basin as a whole. Actually, on this one, we did update this pad to have 3 wells. So while this is an example showing this, we do have another well coming in 6 and 7 on the other side of that boundary unit well at the same time as these 2 also. Just for your reference to know what we're thinking for spacing. But we wouldn't drill another boundary well in the same formation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, just curious, because 560 seems like a long ways between wells. If you only put one unit boundary well,
Yeah.
that seems like more than adequate spacing. It seems like you'd want to, get a couple of them in there, but.
Right.
Yeah.
These are 330 though, per our last hearing. That's
Oh,
what
are they? Okay.
Yes, we spaced these at 330.
Okay.
But yes, good point.
Any
I'm
other
good.
questions? Okay. Other board members other than Ms. Garrison? Steve Church.
Yes, when we're talking concurrent drilling, we're saying drilling with one rig moving from well to well
Yes.
rather than two rigs at a time.
Yes.
And also, you mentioned the savings of moving in and out frac crews, the savings you'd get from that. Are you saying that a frac crew would come in and then move from one well right to another well and have concurrent fracking?
Yes, usually they can set up, the maximum I've seen is 4 wells at a time where while they're running wireline on one for one stage, they're fracking on another well. So it's continuous operations. So it moves much faster, and all of that horsepower and emissions is limited at the time. If you had to wait to complete, you would have to bring in and do just that well, and then you would have that idle time between each stage.
Okay, and so would you say that on the lease line well that it would need to be also flowed back while the other wells are still being completed and flowing back?
No, all the completion would be finished before flowback, and then what we would do is flow back the drilling spacing unit well first, and then turn this well on. So everything would be drilled and completed, but it wouldn't be turned on until there was production and paying quantities from the other well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn the time back over to you. Well, I guess what I need to do is ask Mr. McDonald if that's the end of his presentation.
It is, Mr. Chairman, and at this time, I would ask that the exhibits A through H be admitted into evidence.
Okay, so noted. Ms. Souza, would you like to add the time now?
Yes, please. Thank you. The division is supportive of the petitioner's requests and believes that it will be able to administer the order better with a defined time frame for production and paying quantities. The division is also supportive of that time frame being 1 day. The division would like to take the opportunity, however, to express that it has recently processed one such verified statement contemplated by this order, and the division would like to respectfully request the inclusion of additional clarifying language. Specifically, the division would appreciate if the verified statements identifying the underlying 1280 long laterals be identified by API number, well name, and the date of first production. The division found that this identifying information was helpful in processing that APD. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Any objections to that, Mr. McDonald?
None, but I'd ask to make sure that that's okay and satisfactory with my witnesses.
Yes. Yes.
No objection, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Souza or the division? Hearing and seeing none, I guess we will turn the time back over to you, Mr. McDonald, if you want to make a summation.
Just brief conclusory remarks, Mr. Chairman. This is an important thing, again, and we're just trying to clarify and make sure there's a clear understanding here. The importance of drilling these wells in sequence and within a certain time frame in order to maximize the recovery in an economic fashion. We believe all the requirements have been satisfied for approval of this request. We appreciate the division's cooperation and discussions with this. We thank the board and the division staff, particularly the IT staff, for their help today in this visual hearing. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Well, it's up to the board now to make a determination. Board members, do you want to discuss this, or is there a motion that somebody would like to make to move this forward?
I would move that we approve the request for agency action, including the division's request for additional verifying information to be provided when the division's being notified of well completions.
Thank you, Mr. Borden. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. The motion has been made and seconded. We'll take a vote on it. Because we're doing this in part virtually, Julianne, could you poll the board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Richard K. Gordon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen B. Church, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Lavon J. Garrison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon L. Moon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Selma Sierra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Alan J. Walker, how do you vote?
Yes.
I think I forgot one.
Yeah, it was me, and I'll vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have 7 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Well, it appears that it has passed, and Mr. McDonald, would you prepare the order?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, I believe that concludes this particular agenda item, and we have no other items in the agenda. Is there anything that we've missed that we need to discuss that anybody knows about? Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Do we need
Yes.
to announce the withdrawals and continuances?
Okay. I can do that. Let me grab my agenda here. I've got one. Thank you. In the matter of Altamont Energy Operating, docket number 2021-023, cause number 130-08. This matter has been withdrawn. And the matter, docketed number 2021-00022, I'm sorry, I'll repeat that. Docket number 2021-022, cause number C0250005-NOV21228 in the matter of Alton Coal Development LLC, petition for review of notice of violation. This matter has been withdrawn. And finally, docketed item number 4, docket number 2022-002, cause number S/035/0053 in the matter of the request for agency action of Tree Farm LLC for declaratory ruling regarding the completeness of Tree Farm's NOI. That matter has been continued to the February 23rd, 2022 board hearing. I believe that covers it. Does that cover it for you, Julianne? Great. Thank you. I appreciate the reminder. And I spoke more than I had in the entire board hearing up until this point. So I guess we're back to the motion to adjourn. I heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Great. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Yep.